Welcome to a wrap up of 2023 and a review of the Finura predictions we made for the prior 12 months. This will accompany a video of what we anticipate will happen in 2024, so stay tuned. But in the spirit of accountability, we like to review what we thought about last year, what we got right, maybe what we got wrong, and maybe some things that haven't transpired as yet. So here we go. Prediction number one, startups stop a tough year ahead. So absolutely, this played out in 2023 and we would anticipate continue to play out in 2024. We saw a flurry of wealth tech businesses running out of capital. So according to PitchBook, global venture funding was down by nearly 80% in 2023 versus 2022. And certainly we saw businesses that didn't have significant cash or levers to become cash flow positive. We're simply put in a situation where they had to shut up shop or move into a fire sale. The most notable examples of this were in our sector were certainly Advice Intelligence and Creative Mass. Both these businesses acquired by GBST. Interestingly, still yet to see exactly how that all comes together from a strategic point of view. But it certainly did highlight the fact that even in those scenarios where potentially businesses are put into a fire sale situation, there are acquirers out there who will see some value in these assets, and really it's up to them what they do with it. But we do anticipate this trend to continue in 2024. It is still exceptionally difficult for venture funding at the moment, and really all but only the really very best and brightest prospects are attracting funding at the moment. There is certainly a lot of dry powder that's building up on the sidelines, but really a lot of that venture funding is going towards AI initiatives, and we'll certainly talk about that in our 2024 predictions. Prediction number two, client portal usage goes mainstream. We were really proud of getting this one right. Client portals have been a significantly undervalued and underinvested in part of our ecosystem, and we just see so many logical benefits for advice firms and their clients. This was really, from our perspective, highlighted by a couple of key data points. So we saw significant noise in the client portal space dominated by providers such as MyProsperity. We'll talk about their acquisition that happened midway through 2023. But even from a Finura perspective, we saw really a lot of focus from our clients and prospective clients around looking to really lever up their client portal offerings. Strong intentions now across the market. Now nearly 72% of people, either using a client portal or really intending to use a client portal as part of their Finura health check. And we would expect that trend will continue well into the next couple of years, noting that it's actually quite a long process to adopt a client portal. And we often suggest to firms that it's, if they're going to focus on one thing, that's pretty much the only thing they look at doing for a period of time. Prediction number three, the platform technology arms race continues. So this was absolutely right. We probably wouldn't have come as a shock to anyone, but we've obviously got incredible balance sheet strength concentrating amongst these key platform providers as we send the exit of the banks. And really, it's pretty self-evident that product manufacturing still controls this industry. The market capitalizations of the major platform and technology providers simply dwarfs, particularly what we see in the listed licensee space, and certainly no reason why that won't continue for the foreseeable future. Integrations were absolutely a big part of the story this year. So Colonial First State led what their new Edge wrap offer, which is built on FNZ's technology, with a real integration first approach to the advice tech ecosystem, which was really unique, and really keen to see obviously how that gets adopted in the market. And even globally in the UK, we saw market leader in the UK, Intelliflo, actually launch a joint platform offering in that market with FS&C, which was, certainly unheard of here in Australia to do that, to see that sort of alliance. And, we're getting some feelings in our predictions you'll see in 2024 to what that could mean for this local market. And in the US, certainly as well, we've seen evidence of custodians like Schwab, for example, launching, Salesforce integrations because that's such a dominant player in the advice CRM ecosystem in that market. So that trend we expect likely to continue. Hub absolutely made a ninja move, acquiring MyProsperity. We've honestly been surprised for many years that business hasn't been acquired sooner. Some of the, stock analysts felt that, that perhaps that was an expensive price that Hub paid for MyProsperity. Acquisition was a $40 million all script acquisition. But I think if you look at how the Hub HUB24 share prices tracked in the last 6 months that it's well and truly been paid for. And in fact, a good day for HUB24 shares can often pay for that acquisition in one go. So, but notwithstanding the financial side of it, it's what do they really buy? Well, the reality is they've bought relationships with over 440 accounting and financial planning firms, a very broad set of integrations that are already pre-built with MyProsperity, and incredibly over 60,000 households who have a financial advisor and are aggregating data and jobs to be done between advisors, clients, and the portal, all living on that portal. So we think this acquisition has enormous potential for Hub, particularly given the other assets that they own, Class in particular. And so, we would expect further acquisition in this space. The client portal segment is actually quite thin for an advice ecosystem perspective. So other than the CRMs who offer relatively basic portal solutions, there's not a lot of standalone offers out there in the market. We expect some more will probably follow. But because of the data security requirements and the difficulty it is to build integrations in the ecosystem, this is actually quite a tough place to play catch-up footy. So it'll be interesting to see maybe how other providers follow in this space. Next prediction, digital advice attracts institutional interest. So we saw more digital advice interest in this from institutions from an investment perspective, as an equity perspective, than we did as a customer perspective. So we did get this right. A couple of standouts here really were that, the major players in digital advice, and when I say major, I mean they're well known and regarded, but probably yet to land a significant amount of market traction. So Ignition Advice is an interesting one. They've definitely have clients in the UK and Europe, yet to get an Australian client, but it's our understanding they've received funding from an Australian wealth player who's yet to be identified, which has obviously provided them some capital to continue to grow, but they have strong momentum in Europe. And the other provider, which actually is in market and has pretty good traction with 11,000 customers now, is Ativo. They have a lot of private funding, but as we understand, attracting quite a lot of institutional interests, particularly from the retail side, so retail superannuation side. So we would expect to see, we'll have our predictions this year, some more announcements for those businesses because they're really the two main players in the space. And the only other one that we kept a close eye on was Open Invest, which is probably less in the sort of traditional personal advice digital space. They're more of a robo investing platform, but they received some cornerstone funding from Pinnacle in 2022. Unfortunately, had to raise some more capital late last year, which was probably not ideal timing. But fortunately, at the end of last year, received some follow-through investment from existing shareholders, so they'll still be alive next year as well. So what we have certainly seen, though, is a flurry of requests for proposals, market scans, all sorts of interesting things happening in the market, from major wealth players looking to look at digital advice. So what I mean by that is retail and industry superannuation funds, but less actual activity or launches in market. So just a lot of people really feeling the market out, thinking about what they're going to do. A lot of PowerPoint slides being developed by consultants like us, I suppose. But really, what we would probably prefer to see is actually more focus on what is that business model going to be for digital advice and how people are going to execute on that. And hopefully that's what we see in 2024. Next prediction. Fewer foreign raiders. So again, got this one right. We certainly saw no new entrants into the advice tech ecosystem from overseas of note. Maybe a couple of smaller players still sort of experimenting in the market, but we haven't sort of seen this influx perhaps that some anticipated. We still think this is really down to the shrinking advisor market, with advisor numbers down by 40% over the last few years. That just really has shrunk that addressable market opportunity for advice tech players that are in the US or in the UK and looking at Australia. And look, Finura has spoken to many of these people who certainly have interest in our market for a variety of reasons. But when you look at those dynamics of that shrinking market, it's probably just not as appealing as what it would be, perhaps if numbers were what they were 5 or so years ago. So we still watch that with interest. We do think there will be ongoing interest from a platform technology perspective and a platform perspective into Australia because the size of the FUM is so high in this market. But from an advice tech perspective, we'd be pretty surprised if we saw more foreign players enter this market at this stage. We even underestimated this one around AI. So my God, it was on the tip of everyone's tongue in such a short period of time where there was just such an incredible interest in AI from advisors, particularly, but also starting to see a flurry of technology providers moving into this space. We'll talk more about our AI and our predictions, but there is an awful lot of hype and buzz and a little bit of vapor floating around in that AI ecosystem. But pleasingly, we've certainly seen some low-hanging fruit from a use case perspective for AI within financial advice, and they principally sit in the category, certainly from our perspective around document generation to an extent, content generation probably more so, certainly recording and transcription of meetings and subsequent file noting seems to be a big one as well. And what we would reiterate is that we really see AI as a feature of software products that you're already using. So, while as we've seen with many of the enterprise software solutions like Microsoft and Salesforce and Canva and all these tools we use every day, adding AI features to their products, we would expect in time we see that from some platforms and some of the advice tech providers in the market ecosystem. But for from our perspective, really those low-hanging fruit use cases around, as I said, recording, transcription, file noting, content generation seem to be where the game will be played. And I think 2024 will be a year ultimately where a lot of advice businesses, really focus on the use case of things like Microsoft Copilot. So really going with quite safe AI experimentation. And even from a Finura perspective, we sort of really we try everything, and we're using Copilot, and the technology is really impressive, but it certainly is not perfect. And the biggest thing that we think that's hard to change is the inbuilt behaviors we've got as white collar employees that we've developed over, in my case, over 20 years. Fundamentally, working with AI is a really different set of behaviors. And I think that's going to be the thing that a lot of people underestimate as it rolls out more and more into our world. Certainly a lot of businesses saying that they think they're prepared. A very small number from a Finura perspective believe that they're fully prepared and actively pursuing AI innovation. And certainly what we would say is that the ability to access your data in a very efficient way is the key to AI success. So you'll learn that if you use your Microsoft Copilot, but if you don't have your Microsoft SharePoint, your data management in order, it's actually less effective. So they are the things I think people are going to have to do some of the boring stuff to get ready for AI in the best possible way. But certainly surveying advice firms, we absolutely saw that the major focus of AI was probably less so on the client experience and really changing how financial advice is done, but absolutely in the back and middle office where there was just so many incremental opportunities people felt to be more efficient as a business. And I think given where we are in the interest rate cycle with inflation, where there is real wage pressure on small businesses, I think businesses will be really open to looking at ways to implement moderate productivity gains using AI to hopefully reduce the reliance and just continuing adding more and more people to their businesses or relying on pure outsourcing as an example. So that's the scorecard for the year. I personally think we played it way too safe as Finura. We got 6 out of 6 right. And stay tuned for our next video on 2024 predictions, because I think we're going to have a little bit more of a push ourselves a little bit and have a bit more of a bet as to what we'll see for next year. Thanks.